Afternoon, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. The game plan is today is to hopefully finish up Ezekiel 34. So yes, we're still on part 4, 5, 6, whatever it is on Ezekiel. I haven't bothered to keep count. 5. Thank you, David. He's okay. This is Ezekiel 34, part 5, subtitled "The Covenant of Peace." That's where the focus of this is. And we're going to pick up in verse 25. Now, if we can get through 6 verses today, we'll finish up Ezekiel 34. So starting in verse 35. I will make a covenant of peace with them, and cause wild beasts to cease from the land, and I will dwell safely in the wilderness, and sleep in the woods. And I will make them and the places all around my hill a blessing, and I will cause showers to come down in their season, and there shall be showers of blessing. Then the trees of the field shall yield their fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land, and they shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have broken the bands of their yoke and delivered them from the hands of those who enslave them. And they shall no longer be a prey for the nations, nor beasts of the land devour them, but they shall dwell safely, and no one shall make them afraid. So in this context, we know this is yet to occur. I will raise up from them a garden of renown. Touch on that too, if we get that far. I'll raise up for them a garden of renown, and they shall no longer be consumed with hunger in the land, nor bear the shame of the Gentiles any more. They shall know that I, Yahweh, am their Elohim, and I am with them, and they, the house of Israel, are my people, says Adonai Yahweh. You are my flock, and the flock of my pasture. You are men, and I am your Elohim, says Adonai Yahweh. So, start with, I'm just going to ask, anyone have any question, any comments they'd like to share about this? Because I got some notes on here. All I ask is that all question and commentary be kept on topic. Yes, David.
Yeah, I don't have the verse. I was just about to look it up, but when you start in verse 34, verse 25, and it talks about the covenant of peace, that immediately made me think of Yeshua is the Prince of Peace, and does that reference the covenant of peace during the millennium?
Yes, it does.
They will dwell in peace. I think that's in
And actually,
Isaiah 11, maybe?
Okay. And we will touch on that.
Okay.
Because it's actually much older than that even. Anyone else? Tom?
This triggers a thought. There's a remarkable promise given to an individual known as Phineas or Pincus, who he stopped a plague. I won't go into the weeds of that. But it so impressed Yahweh because he was willing to stand in the gap that he promised to give him a covenant of shalom, of peace. Seems to be somehow a corollary of how our Creator greatly appreciates someone who would intervene to stop people being plagued because of something being done that was licentious right in the very camp of Israel, setting up, for one thing, a terrible example and affecting the morale of all the Israelites there.
And what he promised him through that particular covenant was that the priest would continue through his line.
And I was not going to go there for instance of time, but then there was the perpetuity of priesthood, one of our favorites that we discussed, that would go on through Pincus or Phineas.
Anyone else? Okay, let's just start with what I got up here at the top of verse 25 then, covenant of peace. And I got a few notations on this. And I got a few other scriptures, and each one either going to add a little bit more information as we go through them, and they're a little, as I like to say so many times, they're a piece to the puzzle, if we will. like David went through in his study today. I'm sorry, Dave, but you didn't get through all your puzzle today. Too many pieces.
Yes.
Which is why I don't do literal physical puzzles anymore. I just can't. I'm sorry. I don't have the patience or the whatever. I can't see how people make the perfect shade of blue or the perfect shade of green just line up. I can't fathom how some people do that, particularly little kids. But in any case, we're going to know exactly what this means because it's going to be a fulfillment of something much older. It does go back to Isaiah, of something David brought up, but it goes to something much, much older. Now, remember, the key word here is covenant, a covenant of peace. Can anyone think of something much older than in terms of a covenant? Might it include blessings as well? Can I stir up a thought? Let's try, look, because what I see here, if I see this all correctly, is the ultimate fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28. Now, not the cursings that we're all so much familiar, but the top portion, the blessings, the short portion. That's going to be found like the first 14, 15 verses of Deuteronomy 28. Now mark your place in Ezekiel, please. Well, let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Now, we're not going to be reading about any curses. It will be, the first 14 verses of Deuteronomy 28. The blessings on obedience, because what's the context in which this is given? These people will know that it is Yahweh bringing them to their land. And we're going to have other scriptures that help highlight this as well. And actually bring not necessarily anything new, but certainly it gives a lot more detail and shine a greater light on the meaning of this. And as we will see, if I see this correctly, it's the ultimate fulfillment of this covenant, this if you will. Now, verse 1, Deuteronomy 28. Now it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to carefully observe all his commandments, which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim will set you high above all the nations of the earth. Verse 2, and all these blessings will come up on you and overtake you. Blessings will come up you and overtake you because you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Blessed you shall be in the cities. You mean blessedness? We're not blessed in the cities now? Oh no, today's cities are a mess. Sorry. Blessed you shall be in the city, and blessed you will be in the country. Blessed shall the fruit of your body be. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body. That is our little kids that come after us, our progeny. The produce of your land, of your ground, and the increase of your herds. The increase of your cattle on the offsprings of your flocks. We're not going to need doctors. We're not going to need major medical centers where we got to take a 3-month-old in for surgery. We won't need the vet anymore. Blessed shall your basket and your blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed you shall be when you go out. What happens today in our modern workplaces today? We're so blessed to go out and go to work, right? Oh, Tom's wincing. I see a couple of folks wincing out there. What's with that? Oh, the traffic, the headache. The traffic. Oh, no, that boss. Oh, my gosh, my boss. No. I mean, how many of us at work have had or do have an impossible or difficult boss at work? Oh, okay. A bunch of heads. Well, almost everyone's nodding. My goodness. And blessed should we be when we come back in? No, because we got to go deal with the traffic on the way back home, right? In part. Yes, David.
We're not skipping going and coming from work. Happy about doing so.
Mm-hmm. No. When we go out, I mean, think how many times we hear every day in the news about people getting mugged, getting shot, getting robbed, whatever. Some terrible thing happening to somebody somewhere. Every day. So all that's going to be gone. Yahweh will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before your face. They will come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. There are several types to this. In the scripture, for the sake of time, I won't review them all, but when the judges, in the book of Judges, when Yahweh would raise up a righteous judge to free the Israelites from an oppressor, we saw this happen a few times over. In the days of Gideon, David a couple times, and others, to free Israel from an oppressor. The 7-time cycle we read of in the book of Judges. And that's just in the book of Judges. And there will be an ultimate one in the final days. Yahweh will command a blessing on you in the storehouses in which you've set your hand, and he will bless you in the land which you settle. He will bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Yahweh will establish you as a holy people unto himself, just as he has sworn to you. We read that in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. Yahweh will just establish you as a holy people unto himself, just as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim and walk in his ways. We keep reading that. Now, we keep reading these off and on again cycles. Sometimes the Israelites would get it right, and something, well, only to go right back to what got them in trouble in the first place, right? Then they'd call on, oh, Yahweh, please help us. Well, okay, he'd raise up a righteous judge, kick the oppressors out, and they'd get it right for a bit, and then they'd go right back to it. All a never-ending cycle. Then all the peoples of the earth, but it's going to be something different. Then all the peoples of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of Yahweh, and they shall be afraid of you. And Yahweh will grant you plenty of goods, and the fruit of your body, and the increase of your livestock, and the produce of your ground, in which Yahweh swore to give your father. Yahweh will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, and to give you rain in the land in its season, and to bless you in all the work of your hand. So anything we put our hand to, no matter how hard the labor, it's going to be blessed, and it will be ours to keep. It's not going to be taxed away. You shall lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. And Yahweh will make you the head and not the tail, and you shall be above only, and not be beneath, if you heed the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, which I command you today, and are careful to observe them. So you shall not turn from any of the words which I command you today, to the right or to the left, to go after other Elohim and serve them. Okay, anyone have any thoughts or questions or comments about what we just read here? Okay. Yes, David.
Yeah, I was just, when you were reading this, thinking about how Adam, after they fell, they were kicked out of the Eden, and the curse of having to work for everything that they ate, tilling the land and all of that. Yahweh is, through these blessings, gonna make that a lot easier. He's not totally taking away, we gotta work for our food, but he's
That's
making
right.
it a whole lot easier for us to where we don't have, through the sweat of our brow and through, contention constantly.
That's right.
In the world.
It'll take some work, yes. Like they say, it'll take some work, but it's not going to be the constant tension, the constant contention. And it won't be the hard work that just wears us out to nothing either. Anyone else? Well, yes, Tom.
Mentioned that even though there was that expulsion from Eden, it was just previously mentioned, something that can be read over at times when one's not careful. In Genesis 8, he smelled this sweet savor and said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore. Even though there was a sweat of the ground, it's like his mercy that triumphs over judgment kicked in. Any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart, is acknowledged, even though he's being gracious, is evil from his youth, and neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. So there comes the blessing in the midst of this punishing judgment.
After all, the wrath.
21 and 22.
While the wrath and anger of Yahweh can be hot and can be severe, but it is very short-lived. It doesn't. It's very brief.
If you repent.
If we repent. Anyone else? Okay, let's try a few other scriptures that might help enlighten this a little bit. Can we please try Psalm 89? Let's try Psalm 89. And we're going to read verses 3 and 28. Actually, I want to start at the top. It'll help get us a little bit of... Let's read the first 3 verses, because it'll give us a little context. I will sing of the mercies of Yahweh forever. With my mouth I will make known your faithfulness to all generations. Why is this relevant? Because he's being faithful to a covenant he established early on. For I said, mercy shall be built up forever, and your faithfulness shall establish in the very heavens. And I have, verse 3, I have made a covenant with my chosen, and I have sworn to my servant David, your seed I will establish forever, and build up the throne to all generations. Fast forwarding down. To verse 29. Somehow that's 28, not 29, 28. I'm sorry, verse 28, not 29. My mercy I will keep for him forever, and my covenant shall stand firm with him. Let's try... Oh, now here we're going to get... Let's try Isaiah 54, because here we get to Isaiah, both the next 2 chapters, the entirety of Isaiah 54 and 55 will add a lot of light to this, and I mean a lot of it. Because remember what we just read in Deuteronomy 28, that's only a synopsis. That's just a synopsis of what we read. This expounds upon it in a much more greater detail, the way I understand it. 54, starting in verse 1. Sing, O barren, you who have not borne. Breaking forth the singing, and cry aloud, you have not labored with a child. For more the children of the desolate than the children of a married woman, says Yahweh. Enlarge the place of your tent, and let them stretch out the curtains of your dwellings, and do not spare. Lengthen your cords, and strengthen your stakes. For you shall expand to the right and to the left, and your descendants will inherit the nations, and make the desolate cities inhabited. So the cursings of desolate cities are gone. They were now being inhabited. Blessed we shall be in the city now? That's just the beginning of it. Do not fear, for you will not be ashamed. Neither be disgraced, for you will not be put to shame. Do not forget the shame of your youth. I will not remember the reproach of your widowhood anymore. For your maker is your husband, Yahweh of hosts is his name. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel, and he is called the Elohim or the Mighty One of the whole earth. For Yahweh has called you like a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, like a youthful wife when you were refused, says Yahweh. For a mere moment I have forsaken you, but with great mercies I will gather you, kind of like what Tom brought up a while ago. With a little wrath I will hide my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have mercy upon you, says Yahweh your Redeemer. This is like the waters of Noah to me. Now we're getting something strange here. It may sound strange. For this is like the waters of Noah to me, for I have sworn that the waters of Noah would no longer cover the earth. So I have sworn that I will not be angry with you, nor rebuke you. The waters of Noah. What's the waters of Noah have to do with this? You've got to remember, the waters of Noah, they were very deep. They covered the whole earth. And I don't recall I didn't write this down, the measurement, but that's of the waters. But it was a given depth above the highest mountain. Scriptures record. Like I said, I did not write down the reference or the depth, but these waters cover the whole earth. But this is like the water. For this is like the waters of Noah. The implication here is it could be that this is deep. So I have sworn that he would not be angry with you nor rebuke you, and that he would no longer cover the earth. Isn't that a? Hold your place there, because I was reminded. Let us try again. Back where we were just a while ago in Deuteronomy 28. I want to reread verse 2 to you. And these blessings, Deuteronomy 1, these blessings shall come upon you, and they will overtake you, because you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. So as the waters overtook the entirety of the earth, so will the blessings and the peace of Yahweh in this setting, the one we're reading of in Isaiah 54, and its ultimate completion, fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28. The blessings and peace will overtake, just like the waters of Noah overtook the earth in its day. That's why he says this is deep, because that's going to be beyond in this flesh, beyond our ability to comprehend. We're just going to have to see it firsthand. We're just going to see it firsthand. And even if we physically die before then, if we're in the first resurrection, we'll be there to see it. And as we're given cities of 5, 10, 2, however many, whatever Yahweh chooses to give us, we'll be there for our little piece of the puzzle, for our bit in it, won't we? We'll get the chance to rule and judge over that, just as he has promised. Let's keep on Anyone else have any question or comment before I go on any further?
It makes me think of Yeshua, living waters will burst from you if you drink the deep.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's all. Just a comment.
No, it's
Yes.
the living waters of Yahshua. You are correct. Anyone else?
Did you read verse 10?
Did I read verse 10? Not yet. Let's try verse 10. The mountain shall depart and the hill shall be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from you. Back to Isaiah 54. But my kindness shall not depart from you, nor shall my covenant of peace be removed, says Yahweh, who will have mercy upon you. Because the mountains are oftentimes symbolic of governments, or other ruling authority, government, kings. Remember, these kings are all going to be removed and dissipated. Even if they're not literal physical mountains, certainly the proverbial ones. Because remember, what's one of the great lessons of Daniel, particularly Daniel 2, when the rock comes out of heaven, made by unhuman hands, smashes the idol, destroys the feet and the toes. Destroys them. That is Yahweh taking away all these other earthly governments, man-made governments. Anyone else have any thought or comment they care to share? David, you got that look in your face.
I'm gonna wait till you get.
You're going to wait, okay.
Get to Yahshua.
All right, you're home. Okay. Verse 11. O you afflicted one, tossed with tempest, not comforted, behold, I will lay up on your stones with colorful gems, and lay on your foundations with sapphires, and I will make your pinnacles of rubies, your gates of crystal, and your walls of precious stones, and your children shall... Does that remind us of anything, these last two verses we just read? How about the gates, and how about the breastplate of the priest, the precious stones on that? How about anyone else? The foundations of the New Jerusalem. How about that? Anyone else? Tom?
It says in Malachi that there's a book of remembrance of those that thought often of his name. I'm paraphrasing that. When I make up my jewels.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to think that we're something precious like a jewel or a pearl of great price in the eyes of Yahweh.
All your children shall be taught by Yahweh, and great shall be the peace of your children. In righteousness you will be established. You shall be far from any oppression, for you will not fear, and from terror, for it will not come near you. Indeed, surely they will surely assemble, but not because of me. Whoever takes it, because whoever assembles against you will fall for your sake. Behold, I have created the blacksmith, who blows the coals in the fire, and who brings forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the spoiler to destroy. No weapon formed against you will prosper. And every tongue who rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. For this is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh, and the righteousness is from me, says Yahweh. Let's keep going here into verse 50, chapter 55 of Isaiah. Oh, everyone who thirsts, come to the water. This one in particular. Yes. Did I hear a voice?
I said, oh, yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you have no money. Come buy and eat. Yes, come buy wine and milk, but without money and without a price. Why do you spend your money on what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me, and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance, Incline your ear. Come to me. Hear, and your soul live. I will make an everlasting covenant with you. The sure mercies of David. Just a quick mention about this day we've read a couple times about it here another time or two here. This, I believe, if I understand it correctly, is a reference to Joshua, the King of Kings, who's bringing this mercy. Indeed, I've given him a witness to the people, a leader and commander of the people. Surely you shall call a nation you do not know, and nations who do not know you shall run to you. And nations shall run to you because of Yahweh your Elohim and the Holy One, for he has glorified you. Anyone think of a verse or a prophecy or a short or anything else in Scripture that might illustrate this? Yes, Tom?
Well, in John 7, tied in, it would seem, in my opinion, as a corollary with where this being bidden in verse 1 of Isaiah 55, anyone that thirsts, come to the waters, and he that has no money come to buy and eat. And here in John 7, the Messiah says, in the last day, the great day of the feast of John 7:37, Joshua stood and cried, saying, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believes on me, as the scripture has said, out of his innermost being or belly shall flow rivers of living water.
Larry?
And we know that Joshua sent his footstep followers into the diaspora of Israel. So they spread out throughout the known world at that time to give the message of the good news of the kingdom. But yet we remember Peter was the one that was directed to the Gentile man. And it opened up for the first time that there were those who were not Jewish who accepted Yahshua and was turning to Yahweh, that the set apart spirit was given to. So when it refers here to, and you shall call a nation you do not know, it wasn't all the Israelites who had basically abandoned Yahweh and certainly killed his son. It was those who recognized and turned.
How about the prophecy of the, yes, David? Go ahead, you first.
Zechariah 14:16.
Go ahead and read it.
Oh, you were asking where something similar to what was read, that they would come to people that you did not know would come to you.
Right.
Zechariah 14:16 says, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, and keep the feast of tabernacles.
Yes.
And so this is a future telling of after Yeshua's come, after he submits the whole world under his footstool, those that they did not know will begin to come up year after year.
Yeah, every time I refer to Zechariah 14, I remember of our old buddy Willie Harkless. I know not everyone remembers him, but a show of hands for everyone here knew or remembered Willie. He loved this chapter. It's one of his very favorites. Let's try, or anyone else. Oh, Tino.
Yeah, the covenant of peace. I was reading through Jeremiah chapter 33, and it talks about that covenant of peace, where Yahweh promises peace. I like what he says in verse 6. It says, "Behold, I will bring it health and cure, and I will cure them, and I will reveal to them an abundance of peace and truth. I will cause the captivity of Judah," this is what we're talking about Judah,
Right.
"and the captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. He says in verse 8 following that, he says, I will cleanse them from all their iniquities by which they have sinned against me. I will pardon all their iniquities by which they have sinned against me, and which they have transgressed against me. Verse 9, this city will be to me for a name of joy, for praise and for glory before all nations of the earth, which will hear all the good that I do to them, and will fear and tremble at all the good for all the peace that I provided them. And it keeps going on about this peace and truth. And then right following up after that, he's talking about the covenant he made with David. About how there will be a righteous branch that will come out of the throne of David, will basically rule over Israel. And that's where Yahshua came from. He came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But then he also opens it up to spiritual Israel, as we know that that's in this time that Yahshua is still reigning from that place of the kingdom, from out of David's loins, if you would.
Robert?
I just want to know, Jeremiah, where?
Chapter 33, really the whole chapter, but starting verse 7, 6 and 7.
All right, thank you.
Thoughts about the covenant of peace, and what you read in chapter 54, verses 14 and 15 brings to mind all of Psalm 91.
The entirety of Psalm 91, yes.
91.
Yep.
Yeah, for the sake of time, we won't read it all, but
Yeah, but
I'll just
that's a
refer
good
you to it,
cross-reference
yes.
If anybody, verse 14 and 15.
Yes, I got that in my notes, but yes. Thank you, Robert. Yes, the entirety of Psalm 91. Let's try, yes, Raquel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring up an account in Numbers 25.
Go ahead.
About, is it Phinehas? The story of Phinehas,
Right.
who's the grandson of Aaron.
Right.
Who, during that time, the Moabites had successfully tempted the Israelites, right, to intermarry and to worship Baal Peor. And Phinehas, he basically executed an Israelite man and a Midianite woman while they were in the man's tent, by running a javelin through the man and the belly of the woman, right? Bringing to an end a plague that was sent by Yah, right? So,
Correct.
just reading 25 to verse 11. Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, this is, I guess, Yahweh talking, has turned back. Let's see. I did not, therefore say, behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and his descendants after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his Yah, and made atonement for the children of Israel. So because of his zeal, he was given that covenant of peace.
Yeah.
That's so significant because Paul says that in Corinthians that Messiah, through his sacrifice, has achieved the reconciling of the world to himself, and he's given us the ministry as the officers of his kingdom, ambassadors of his kingdom, the ministry of reconciliation. And here in this prophecy, in verse 13 of Numbers 25, where Raquel was, and he shall have this covenant of peace, is what it's saying in verse 12, and his seed after him in perpetuity. Even the covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because what? He was zealous for his Elohim and made an atonement. The word in the Hebrew is reconciliation for the children of Israel. So it seems like he's tied in with everything Paul says of new Brit Kadeshah, new covenant brethren that have been given the ministry as ambassadors of the reconciliation.
That's correct.
And elsewhere you read, be you reconciled one to another. Also gives another statement in the New Testament, be reconciled to, of course, Yahweh.
Lisa.
And a while ago, when you were reading the scriptures in Deuteronomy 28 about the blessings, but it comes with obedience.
Yes.
And here in Isaiah 56, 4 through 6, it has some good thoughts here. It starts talking about the eunuch, but it talks about obedience. It says, "For thus saith Yahweh unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant, even unto them I will give in my house and within my walls a place, and a name better than of sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahweh, to serve him, and to love the name of Yahweh, to be his servants, everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant."
And again, that
Even
was
them I
where,
bring to my mountain.
Yep.
that was chapter,
Isaiah 56.
I should remember that. But it's just-
Let's try Isaiah 2, verse 2. All right, I'll read the first two verses of Isaiah 2, verses 1 and 2. And the word of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established atop the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and nations will flow to it. Verse 3. Many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the mighty one of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law." And the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and rebuke many people. Then they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks, and nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Good time?
I brought this up before, but it's so significant in light of what's happening in the world today with the, quote, United Nations, and all the corruption that's in that organization. There's a flat plain, I've been there, I've visited the big Secretariat building where the General Assembly is. But out there on the flat plain, there is a very muscular bronze smith with a hammer forging a sword into a plowshare. But it redacts, it twists it by not acknowledging that it's the Messiah that's going to do it, not the United Nations. And that's where the terrible misrepresentation of this truth that's eternal, ironically, has been twisted and distorted, where it's man with all of his frailties and sins and stupidity and lack of wisdom, divine wisdom, is going to bring peace to the nation and stop war. And it's talking about Joshua here, but they have conveniently, I say that tongue-in-cheek, left that part of this quote out that's on that statue of that bronze smith.
Tom, I'm shocked to my soul. I'm shocked to my core that the UN would twist the scripture like that. To make it mean them.
I know you'd be overwhelmed.
I'm just stupefied that they would do such a thing. Let's continue on in Isaiah 55. Where do we leave off? Okay, verse 6. I believe we left off at verse 5. Let's go to verse 6. "Seek Yahweh while he may be found, and call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and let the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return unto Yahweh, and to our Elohim, and he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways are my ways, says Yahweh. For as the heavens are higher than the air, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. For as the rains come down, the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water the earth, and make it bring forth and bud, and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth, and it shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I have sent it. For you'll go out with joy, and be led out with peace, that the mountains and the hills shall break forth into singing before you, And all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. You mean we're not going to be troubled in the cities and the country anymore? We're not going to be troubled when we go out and we go back in? This is what we're going to expect in between? I can't, I'm going to spell it out. I can't fathom that. We're just going to be there to see it, won't we? Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress tree. Instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree. For it shall be to Yahweh for a name, an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I think most of y'all can agree with me that this sounds like a pretty impressive covenant of peace. And all we have to do is what? That's it. Yahweh's going to bring this ultimate fulfillment, yeah, but we don't see it now covering the earth, but we know one day that it will. Can we back up, please? Something we read. Let's back up to Isaiah 54 a moment. Isaiah 54. Wait, no, what? We covered that, didn't we? I'm sorry. And I guess I wrote something down wrong because, and I don't see it. Leave it to me to write something down wrong, right? Because I have a notation in my notes for a garden of renown. It's not, well, yes.
Can we read Isaiah 35?
Maybe it was what, Isaiah 35.
Yeah, there it says, Isaiah chapter 35, it talks about, in verse 1, the wilderness and the dry land shall rejoice for them, and the desert shall...
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Like the,
Yes.
Then I'm going to go in verse 3. Make the weak hand strong and firm up the stumbling knees. Say to those of hasty heart, be strong, do not fear. Behold, your Elohim will come with vengeance, with the full dealing of Elohim. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf ones open, and the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb shall sing. For water shall break out in the wilderness and stream in the desert. And the mirage shall become a pool, and the thirsty land shall become springs of water in the home of the jackals, in its lair, and the place for the reed and the rush. And the highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The clean shall not, the unclean shall not pass over it, and it is for them, the ones going in the way, ye fools shall not go astray. No lion shall be there, no violent beast shall go up on it, and it shall not be found there. But redeemed ones shall walk there. The ransomed of Yahweh shall return and enter Zion with singing and everlasting joy on their head. Gladness and the joy shall reach them, and the sorrow and the sighing shall flee. So this is prophetic of a time in the future. One, it's going to be literal, and two, it's also going to be spiritual, because several things are going to happen here. One, we can see that Yahweh and by Joshua will save a lot of mankind, but also those who are doing treacherous deeds will be cut off. But there's going to be a physical healing. The people who are blind and deaf will be able to see and hear. We can see that waters will spring forth. A lot of the deserts on earth will come reedy pools and things like this. But what's important, verse 8 here, it says, "And a highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it." So really, to be on that the highway of holiness, you have to be found to be persons that are righteous. You have to expound and live by the commandments that Yahweh has given. Because in verse 10 it tells us that they are the ones that are ransomed by Yahweh. And they'll have everlasting joy and gladness. So this is prophetic, it's going to be literal, and it's going to be spiritual.
Yeah. Can we go back to Ezekiel? Thank you. Go back to Ezekiel 34. I want to, because we've touched on a number of these items in reading Isaiah, but now let's go to verse 29. "I will raise up for them a garden of renown, and no longer they shall be consumed with hunger in the land, nor bear the shame of the Gentiles anymore." Larry touched on a part of it right here. Well, what does this mean? What could this mean? "I will raise up for them a garden of renown. They shall no longer be consumed with hunger in the land." Well, the greatest garden of renown in history so far today has been the Garden of Eden. Now, this might not be quick, but let's try a few verses of Scripture that just might exemplify this. First, let's try Isaiah 32. Isaiah 32. And we will read verse 15. Isaiah 32:15. "Until the Spirit is poured upon us from up on high, and the wilderness becomes a fruitful field, and the fruitful field is counted as a forest." Now let's back up a little further. Try Isaiah 29, please. Let's try Isaiah 29. Let's pick it up in verse 17, shall we? Isn't it? Isaiah 29, starting verse 17. "Is it not yet a very little while till Lebanon shall be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field as a forest? Because in that day the deaf shall hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of the obscurity of the darkness. The humble shall increase their joy in Yahweh, and the poor men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the terrible one is brought to nothing, and the scornful one is consumed. For all who watch for iniquity are cut off, who make a man an offender by a word, and lay a snare for one whom reproves in the gate, and turn aside the just by empty words." Can we please try Psalm 108, please? Psalm 108. We'll read a few verses out of that. Let's start in verse 33, please. We're going to pay attention especially to verse 35, but boy, did I write that one down wrong. I know I did. Oh, for Pete's. Here I go. I've done it again. Maybe it's 107. Let me see. Yeah, it's 107. I don't know why I wrote it. It's 7. Thank you. Psalm 107, starting verse 33. I was looking across the page wrong is what I did. He turns the rivers into a wilderness, and the water springs into dry ground. The fruitful land and the barrenness for those who dwell in it. He turns a wilderness, verse 35, he turns a wilderness into pools of water, and dry land into water springs. There he makes the hungry dwell, that they may establish a city for the dwelling place, and sow fields and plants and vineyards, that they may yield a fruitful harvest. And he also blesses them, and they multiply greatly, and he does not let their cattle decrease. Let's pay attention to verse 35, because what he's talking about here is lands that were once dry riverbeds and fruitful lands they used to be barren. He's reversing the process. Now he's making them fruitful again. He's making the rivers flow again instead of dry beds. Yes, Tom, you had your hand up.
The other way, even though this is primarily all about blessings, it's believed that there's a profoundly prophetic event that's happened. The land bridge is now open, that the Euphrates River has dried up. I just saw it on the internet yesterday. And they're just dismayed, how could this be climatologically? And then, of course, they fall back on, well, we gotta have more electric vehicles, it's global warming.
Oh, of course.
Euphrates River is dried up, the land bridge now.
Yeah, because verses 34 and 35 in this passage serve as a contrast to what he will bring about. Yes, Raquel.
No, I just want to mention that, I mean, we don't have to wait in the future, that he has his gift of peace now through the set apart spirit. So if I could just read some scriptures in John.
Go ahead.
So John 14, 26, but the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all things that I said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Right? Then if I go down to 16, this is when he was like telling them what's about to happen to him, you know, that his hour is coming. And if I go down to 33, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. And if I, then after he died and was resurrected, going to chapter 20, when he appeared to the apostles, going to verse 20, actually 19, in that same day of evening, being the first day of the week, you know, when he showed up, the first thing he said was, peace be with you, right? And then he had said this, and he showed them his hands and his side, and the disciples were glad to see him. Then going to 21, so Yahshua said to them again, peace to you. So he said it twice. As the Father has sent me, I also send you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, receive the Holy Spirit.
We have a type of this, even this individual peace. Amongst us as a body and as an individual believer, we have a type of this. We see this exemplified. I'm thinking it's in the story of Daniel when his three buddies are thrown into a furnace. How can you have peace when you're bound up hand and foot and you're about to be chucked into a furnace that's been roared up 7 times harder than normal? Because what was their testimony before Nebuchadnezzar? We know our Elohim who is... Notice, we will not serve you, we'll not bow down to your statue. I'm paraphrasing. And we know our Elohim whom we serve is able to deliver us. And even if he chooses not to, we will not bow down to your statue. But they knew that Yahweh could deliver them if he chose. And he did. And then we see, when Nebuchadnezzar saw 4 men instead of 3 in the furnace, that was his rebuke. So when evil men scoff us, do harmful things, we might not have to say a word for their rebuke. We might not have to say a word, as in their case. Anyone else? Anyone have any question, thought, comment? Tino, do you have any? Oh, Shannon, yes.
I just wanted to make that a prayer. I just, for thine, Yahweh, is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Right here, right now. Amen.
Because when I was starting into this study, I'd read in time before about this covenant of peace. What exactly is this covenant? And to me, but then when it occurred to me, it was so simple. Well, I had to change my thinking a little bit and focus on the word covenant. Well, where would we receive anything like that was made into a covenant? It was in the Torah. It was very old. It was nothing new. This was not a new thing. Very old truth. He went back to early parts in Genesis. When Cain and Abel made their offerings, and Yahweh tells Cain, spells out, he says, if you do well, will you not be received? And it was amazing how simple this was. Now this just simply enlightens it, if you will. Particularly the passages we read out of Isaiah. Yes, David.
No, it's just, so as talking about peace and the covenant of peace, obviously we have to mention Yeshua as Prince of Peace. So Isaiah 9:6, did you have that one?
No, I didn't.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Isaiah 9, verse 6, actually 6 and 7 says, for unto us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty El, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, in order it to be established with the judgment of which justice and for even Yahweh, even forever, the zeal of Yahweh of hosts will perform this. So that makes me, originally I was just gonna quote Zechariah 6:13.
Go ahead.
But that just kind of goes right into Zechariah 6:13. It says, even he shall build the temple of Yahweh, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counselor of peace shall be between them both. So Yeshua actually is the administrator of the covenant of peace.
Yes, he will. As the King of Kings, and his role as Melchizedek, the great priest of the Melchizedek priesthood. Yes, David, you're correct. Tom?
There's a beautiful oratorio in Handel's Messiah, which he said that it was supernatural that he wrote it in such a short period of time, such an immense piece of musical work. But there's this soaring, beautiful oratorio by a tenor singing Isaiah 9 that David just quoted. If you ever had to get a chance to listen to it, it is just glorious. Handel's Messiah.
I love that piece.
Not to mention the chorus where he shall reign forever and ever. Hallelujah.
He shall reign forever.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Boy, that's the
It
one.
is amazing.
Anyone else, any question or comment? Okay, Tino.
I was looking at the definition for peace, and obviously we know that's shalom.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we put that together and you say the covenant of shalom, it makes a lot of sense in my mind in looking at these definitions. And it starts from the numbers H7965, and in the Brown Jarvis Briggs it says the first one, it says completeness, soundness, welfare, peace. And then it just goes through this list of all these different attributes that's given to shalom. And it says in number, which is completeness, and safety, which is soundness and body. Then it says welfare, health, and prosperity, peace, quiet, tranquility, contentment. Well, that's a really good one, contentment. Peace, friendship, and here it kind of gets into the meat and potatoes, because it talks about it in human relationships, but also talks about it in relationships, in a covenant relationship with Elohim. And so that's essentially what we're talking about. That type of peace, only Yahweh can give that.
That is correct.
And that doesn't come from some flatteries given to someone who wants to put their peace on the people. It doesn't, Yahweh, you could never match that. So that's what essentially we're talking about, because that completeness, that wholeness that only Yahweh can give to those that believe in him.
That's right, Tim, because so many times Man, here we are, mankind, and we have this convoluted, with our own convoluted ideas of peace. When in fact, I mean, as the studies illustrates, these men don't know what peace is. And it's no wonder the scriptures read, peace, peace, when there is no peace.
Adversary can't give you peace.
Nope. No, he can't. Anyone else? Okay, well, if not, well, we'll go ahead and close here. And we'll be back next Sabbath at 1 o'clock with who? Larry up for the study. So Larry Jernigan up for the study.